I am Charlie Simons, your host here on Do Not Talk, talking about two things you're never supposed to talk about: religion and politics. Right? No, wrong. We should have never stopped talking about those two things. One decides what life is going to be like here on earth, the other one decides what it's going to be like when you leave it. Makes it not only kind of important, but vitally important. We should be talking about those things, especially if you're a follower of Christ Jesus. We're to share our light. Don't hide your light under a basket, away in a back room. No, we're to shine our light, let all to see. And despite what the reaction might be, what the show is about today is most likely going to get deleted off of Facebook and off of YouTube. I'll just say that right up front because I just did a show with similar content because I believe that strongly in it. And I also believe it's extremely important that we talk about it and keep exposing it. Like Ephesians 5:11 said, be no part of the works of darkness, but instead even expose them. That's what we're about to do. His name is Arthur Schapper, and he has massresistance.org. Massresistance.org. You'll want to hear this show. You'll want to see it. And if they don't delete it, share it, especially out the Rumble channel, rumble.com/DoNotTalk. I love Rumble. I know that they will not delete this show, even if Facebook and YouTube does. I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to keep speaking up. I'm going to keep giving people like Arthur a platform to let you know what they're doing and what kind of progress is being made, because you'll never see it, not only on mainstream media, but you'll most likely never even see it on alternative media, because they're all interested in clicks. They want to get more views. They want to get more likes, more responses, and more money from the monetization of it. That's not what drives me. Not at all. This is a ministry. This is a ministry. So I'm going to keep on giving people like Arthur a platform to talk about the one thing that they don't even talk about in churches, which is real distressing to me. Just terrible. Before I bring Arthur on, though, I would ask you to please be involved in this show and what happens, and you can help us grow. You can do it financially with that little QR code right there. That takes you right to venmo.com/DoNotTalk. You appreciate this show. You like what I'm doing. If you could honor this work with a financial contribution, that'd be a tremendous blessing. Venmo.com/DoNotTalk. And I would also encourage you to buy American-made products, over 400 of them in one location. You don't hear about this because they don't advertise. It's all word of mouth. And it's freedomswitchusa.com/Lee. Lee is my middle name, Lee. freedomswitchusa.com/Lee. Get us your email address on there, and you'll get to watch a little video that explains the whole thing and how it works. And it's all word of mouth. And it's everything for your body, for your home, even food, including grass-fed beef, all in one place. So come on board. You don't have to worry about, they're shutting down shipping. Oh, no, nobody can get their products to market. Oh, no, what are we going to do? The store shelves are bare. Well, why don't you buy an American product that features American-made, or American store that features American-made products all in one place, and bypass all that noise. Fire the big corporations. freedomswitchusa.com/Lee. You will thank me for it. Please try that. All right, before I bring Arthur Schapper into the mix here, I want you to watch this, and I want to get his reaction to it in just a second. Okay, roll it. All right, here we go, to the wall to take down the flag in the classroom. The little pride flag in the classroom. At the very end, a little flip you off. Those are the people teaching your children. Are these folks who are all hell bent on grooming our kids going to actually go away? Are they going to quit their jobs? Arthur Shopper, are they going to suddenly go, okay, I guess I was wrong on all this and I'll never do it again? Or are they just going to wait it out for 4 years?
Hmm. Well, first of all, Charlie, thanks again for having me on the show. I'm glad that you do talk about these issues, not just politics and religion, but speaking against the whole LGBT agenda. All the alphabet, the whole alphabet of perversion must be confronted. And you see exactly why. Videos like that are so disturbing, where you have, and that's clearly a man pretending to be a woman, which is a triple, quadruple corruption. They're pushing pride flags. They're pushing Satanism. They're pushing all this grooming. They're not teaching. And he's a confused man pretending to be a woman, inculcating, pushing all this garbage onto children. This is Mass Resistance, the organization I'm very proud to work with. They've been active for over 30 years. We are the international pro-family group that makes the difference. And we sounded the alarm on all of this perversity. We started in Massachusetts. We exposed teachers and the sex ed curricula that was pushing all kinds of horrific, vile garbage on children, teaching them about anal sex, oral sex, normalizing homosexuality, normalizing transgenderism. And this is going all the way back to the early 1990s. And now it's culminating in invading classrooms all over the country. President Trump's executive orders dealing with the radical indoctrination in the classrooms, as well as a complete ban on the promotion and the actual surgical and medical and castration abuse of children. These are noteworthy and essential orders. These are the stepping stones for parents to take back their schools. We see a lot of parents taking their kids out of the schools. We see a lot of parents screaming at school boards, trying to change the makeup of the school boards. And now we have a strong and welcome ally in the White House, in the federal government, demanding that the schools stop abusing kids. Let's call it what it is. It goes beyond grooming. This is outright child abuse.
If anybody went into a classroom or any kind of setting, a library or anything like that, and tried to espouse to them the virtues of Christ Jesus and to becoming a follower of Christ Jesus, how would the schools, the school boards, the administration, the teachers, the parents, how would they react to that?
I mean, it would be absolute terror and outrage depending on the political bent of the board. You even have the most sympathetic school boards and governing boards that do want to restore a sense of Christian appreciation and tradition in the public square, but they're so terrified of lawsuits. I do feel that we're seeing the tide turn against all of this anti-Christian, anti-Judeo-Christian heritage, anti-American hostility in the schools. This is an important salvo coming from the Trump administration. This is good. I do hope to see, seeing a recognition of our God-given heritage is essential. This is where natural law and natural right come from. The framers, the drafters of the Declaration of Independence were not afraid to recognize the divine origins of our rights and responsibilities as citizens within a country. So, Mass Resistance, we've been forging ahead. We accomplished considerable good at the Norwalk La Mirada School District in California. For example, we have cleaned out drag queen story hour programs in libraries. We've exposed these sex offender predators, perverts. That's a fact. Right there in the state of Idaho, where you're currently broadcasting from, we are delighted to share that one of the state reps is running our resolution against Obergefell v. Hodges. That was the seminal moment that unleashed this whole LGBT tyranny on the country, imposing so-called same-sex marriage on the country, despite the fact that 38 states had enacted laws or constitutional amendments which clearly defined marriage naturally, essentially, and legally between one man and one woman. When all of that changes, if you change the definition of marriage, moms and dads become optional, children suffer. When you change the definition of marriage, you are normalizing sexual degradation and trauma. This is something I want to stress with your audience. When you're talking about a lot of alternative media that doesn't touch this issue, you could not be more correct. And even the most bold and outspoken pro-family activists and advocates, they refuse to point out some very painful facts. Part of the whole do not talk problem, which you are confronting. Homosexual conduct is inherently destructive. Putting aside religious sentiment or traditional aspirations, two men were not designed to be abusing each other. Two women were not designed to be abusing each other. And the fact that the pro-family movement ignored these fundamental physical and physiological realities is why the whole gay rights and trans rights, really tyranny movements, have ensued. People have bought into this idea since the late 1960s. Well, they're just two adults. They just love each other like everybody else. Love is love, right? Wrong. We don't drink water out of a toilet. We don't drink sewage and call that liquid.
Water is water.
Water is water, right? No, of course not. You have to look at context. You have to look at realities. Dr. Miriam Grossman, who is a supporter of mass resistance, she has given a number of talks dealing with sex ed, the proper and healthy development of children. Sexual dynamics of human beings are not politically correct. Men and women are different, and they can't change. Men and women, male and female, are static, essential, dynamic realities that cannot be altered. And redefining marriage treated these fundamental verities as dispensable, that they could be dismissed and not hurt anybody. And look what we've seen happen now for the last 10 years. We're coming on the 10th anniversary of that horrid same-sex marriage decision being imposed upon the country. And a lot of pro-family groups seem to be accommodating it and just wanting to focus on the trans. But we have the trans because of the gay. We have the confusion of male and female because we have the confusion of what marriage is about, what sexuality is about. And this isn't to say everybody should become a monk or a nun. None of us would be here without without the very procreative act and the marriage covenant, which makes that procreative act not only possible, but enhances it and makes it sublime. Society can't function if you have disorder, chaos, and moral emptiness. There are statistics and evidence at great length. Mass resistance, we've really championed this essential approach to fighting this agenda. Getting back to the legal situation, the constitutional situation, the state of Idaho is the first state boldly to take a stand, saying to the Supreme Court, you have no business, you had no authority to redefine this fundamental institution. And it could be any institution. The federal government has clear enumerated powers in Article 1, Section 8. There's nothing there about marriage. There's nothing there about familial issues. These are powers and rights which belong to the states and the people, 10th Amendment.
And that's how our Constitution was designed. That is our not a democracy, a constitutional republic, states' rights.
Absolutely. And we hear the same tired arguments from the left. Well, states' rights is just code words for bigotry and racism and segregation. When the irony is that the people in those states where they were pushing, where Jim Crow, that was also imposed top down. The people on the ground, whether they were business owners or everyday churchgoers, they did not want Jim Crow. That was actually imposed by governments top down. You could go all the way to Woodrow Wilson, who was a big champion of an expansive living constitutional interpretation. And he wanted to roll out segregation across the country. He segregated the White House. He tried to undo all of the integrative work of Teddy Roosevelt and William Howard Taft. This is,
and Abraham Lincoln.
And especially Abraham Lincoln. Absolutely. I mean, LBJ wanted to reinstate another form of apartheid while claiming to champion civil rights. Was absolutely disgusting. Another thing I really enjoyed about President Trump's first 3 weeks in office, I think it's 3 weeks. I mean, I'm losing count here. It's gone so fast. It feels like a month, 2 months. He's done so much already. Yep. But going after the DEI, going after the LGBT, trouncing, diminishing, destroying all of this LGBT indoctrination, demanding that federal employees stop promoting it from the so-called preferred pronouns of the signatures. I was just sharing about this online. You have the secretaries of transportation and defense have ordered no more identity celebration months. This is an essential step towards reunifying the country. We should stop balkanizing ourselves based on our race, ethnicity, our background. You can celebrate your history, but LGBT is not a part of that. Why should anybody be pushing their sexual problems into the forefront and insisting that the federal government celebrate this? And if your viewers have a chance, they can visit our website, massresistance.org, We have extensive research showing how so many of the federal agencies for the last 10 to 15 years have been ideologically captured by this agenda. Pride Month here, non-binary month there. In fact, federal officials, our American officials in foreign countries, in the embassies, were promoting this cultural neo-imperialism in sub-Saharan Africa, in the Middle East, and in Oceania, Australia. Well, Australia has also gone woke, sadly, but you see this in Asia, Southeast Asia, etc. These are countries that still recognize that biological norms should be respected. And they were violating the local laws or the international laws, pushing this agenda. It was arrogant, it was obscene. We've also had a hand in helping foreign countries to push back against this agenda. We're training children through pastors in Kenya. We're building an effort in Senegal. These are West and East African countries. We have a pastor who's also sharing our message with residents in Uganda and South Africa. So, I mean, this agenda is just relentless, going after every country that it can to normalize the destruction of the family, the destruction of marriage, and the destruction of the society itself. And you know what? American conservatives need to take a stand and be bold. There is a great retort from a lot of younger conservatives, whether they're dissident or establishment, whatever you call them. And they ask a very simple question: what have you conserved? And we've seen everything demolished, right down to the very institution of family. And my response and my challenge to the young and the old in the conservative movement, the common sense movement, the constitutional movement, it's to restore. It's time for us to say restore. That is a visionary move. The framers wanted to restore our God-given rights. That's what the Declaration of Independence asserts. We need to restore the family. We need to restore the meaning of the rainbow. We need to restore that there are boundaries and moral limitations for the good of all. They are not tyrannical. They are not oppressive. They are not abusive. They are not unconstitutional. They are essential to constitutional norms. This is a discussion we have to have. And you know what? Suffice to say, I've had my criticisms with Donald Trump in the past, and there are still better decisions he can make down the line. But we have seen the floodgate of opportunities now open up. The executive orders have opened the way for this. His going after the promotion of this. His Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, I mean, conservatives loathed this man, especially when it came to his amnesty proposals 10 some years ago. Look how he has turned around. He has embraced the true pro-American, pro-family zeitgeist that has taken over not just the Republican movement, but a lot of voters across the country. He is doing an estimable job promoting proper pro-family values. Rick Scott, his colleague from the U.S. Senate, he wanted to get rid of all DEI promotion in the census, and that includes LGBT. Let's not forget that. And well, we are building on that, although I will say for the last 3 years, we've had this draft resolution against Obergefell. We've had it in waiting. We've been looking for legislators to take it up. Idaho was the first one. I got off the phone with the legislator in South Dakota. They're running it there. North Dakota is running it. In Iowa, a legislator is working on it. Kansas, we've connected with people in Mississippi, Oklahoma. We're working with some people in Georgia, too, who can run it, and Michigan. I still think of Michigan as a blue state. I know that Trump won the state 2 times, but it's still got a pretty blue underground. And there is an incredible state legislator there named Josh Shriver, and he is a young, very bold conservative. He's not even afraid to talk about a so-called Trump establishment. I mean, he even sees some of the people who support Trump as establishment because they're not going far enough. We're not restoring enough. And he is very bold. He stated plainly, he put it on social media 2 months ago, make gay marriage illegal again. And he started a fight with the Attorney General of Michigan. He has pushed back on liberal elements throughout the state of Michigan. He's been getting hate messages from all over the country, apparently. And his resolve has doubled. And he really appreciates mass resistance because you got to get to the core of these issues. It's not enough to say, I don't want you teaching this to my kids in the schools. You got to say, no, you don't get to promote this in the public square.
Period. Any kind of sexual lifestyle, any kind of sexual choice, whether you're born that way or not. We'll argue that later. The point is, it's about a sexual lifestyle.
Yes.
That does not belong in anything having to do with instructing children.
Yes.
Period. And
Yes.
Jesus was very clear on what's going to happen to you. Actually, what he said was, it should be done to you. I always
Yes.
point that out in scripture. Jesus said, if anyone causes any of these young ones to stumble, it would be better for them not it would be better for them to for you to it would be better for them to have a heavy millstone tied around their neck and to be cast into the sea, not to
Yes.
jump into, but cast.
We
That's
need a lot of
very
millstones
strong
right now.
wording, isn't it?
Yeah, we need a lot of millstones, starting with Mr. Richard Levine. His name is not Rachel. And that creepy non-binary nuclear official who was stealing women's luggage. They literally are advocating impressing this upon children. Richard Levine, pretending to be a woman, advocated for this. This is absolutely abhorrent. That creepy man in a dress that you showcased at the beginning of this segment, people like him, absolutely. He was definitely a prime candidate for a millstone. They do this actively. And this is another message that mass resistance is determined to communicate to every parent and every conservative activist generally. There is such a fanatical, maniacal hatred behind this agenda. They truly hate us. It is a war with nature itself. It is a self-aggrandized victimhood to a zenith. And what that means is I can do whatever I want. I can even commit crimes because I'm right and you're wrong. And we have seen this where delusional, mentally ill men who think they're women and vice versa have gone on shooting sprees. There have been numerous mass shootings committed by these so-called transgenders. This is clearly a mental illness. This is not something to be accommodated. It is something that it needs to be committed. Okay, like in a mental health institute. We need to get back to that. We need to re-deviantize sexual perversion. Joseph Chambra, give him a special shout out. He's a minister in San Francisco. He was an out homosexual. He engaged in every act you can imagine, suffered horrific abuse and not just abuse from trusted adults, but from leaders in churches. It was so horrible. And he doesn't hold back and say, homosexuality, this is a mental problem. This is an emotional problem, and it's not something that should be accommodated. Look, everybody's natural rights must definitely not celebrated. Everybody's natural rights must be protected, whether you're sick or well. Every human being has natural rights. But borrowing from what Dr. Ben Carson said when he was confirmed for the Department of Housing and Urban Development, we do not and should not tolerate special rights or privileges. And we've got to go to that next step and start telling the truth. No, you're calling yourself gay is not something we should accept, let alone celebrate. You saying that we should redefine a fundamental institution so that you can feel good about yourself is not okay. It's hurt everybody else. We must not allow 1% to 2% tyrannically obsessed and mentally disturbed to harm the rest of us. It's time for us to put our foot down.
It fully is. We're past time.
Yeah,
I was stunned to hear that massresistance.org has been around for 30 years.
Yeah, over 30 years.
It has been going on even long before that, as you pointed out.
And that's the whole point. They pulled this crap in Massachusetts. New England has always been a cesspool. What a shame. It was the cradle of our republic, and it's turned into a cesspool of communism. It's horrible. It's because of the university culture, which is so prevalent in New England. But at the same time, we're there as a light shining in that deep darkness, and we're shining our light throughout the country, throughout the world. We've had the support of many people, yourself included, even in California, blue states red, foreign countries around the world. They have clamored for our message, and they are so grateful. I've even been in communication with people in Belgium. Belgium is like the belly of the beast when it comes to liberal, secular progressivism in Europe. Belgium is like completely postmodern. And yet even there, people have reached out to us and said, thank you for taking a stand for family. Thank you for speaking up against this agenda. Because we have our blessed First Amendment here in the United States, but they don't have freedom of speech in Europe. They don't have it in Canada. Speaking boldly against these perverse behaviors and agendas, you're looking at court fines. You're looking at jail time. It is unbelievable how.
If you haven't been catching the videos, it's happening right now. If I was based in those two countries, either England or Canada and Australia, I'll throw that in. I would have officials knocking on my door, questioning me, arresting me because of this show.
Yep.
That's happening right now. It's a
Yes.
very powerful, powerful thing. And this goes far, far deeper than just some kind of political movement, which is what it is, celebrating a sexual sin.
Yes.
And
And that's what it
I
is.
have,
Call what it is, a sin. It is a pervert. Why are we? And we can talk about sin in a secular or a human rights or a natural rights perspective, even if you take the religious veneer out of it. It is a corruption of our moral order. You know, to this day in the Philippines, it is a crime to cheat on your spouse. And you know what? That makes sense because it doesn't just harm the two. We're talking about the kids who are harmed. We're talking about society that gets harmed. All these George Floyd rioters, all these pro-Palestinian rioters, all the Black Lives Matter rioters. These are kids, I submit, and I could prove, are born out of broken families, destruction of the family. We have seen this horror of disorder unleashed in our country, on our culture because of this. Oh, very much it matters what happens in private. It does have public consequences. We have to talk about these things.
let's, I want to get your response to what I've been seeing from our fellow conservatives. Well, I'll just make it me. I'll keep you out of it. My fellow conservatives, my fellow Republicans, especially in the state of California, who will say to me just stupid things like, well, we should have a straight pride month then. Then what do you
Okay.
mean? So you're saying it's okay for them to do this and to celebrate it in front of your children? No, it's not okay at all. Stop talking that way, because what you're doing is making it acceptable. And again, it's just you. Okay, well, they have a pride. The government gave them a Pride Month of June. No, first of all, let's start there. Let's get this clear. This was never a government mandated and accepted. This is nationally recognized. June is Pride to be a homosexual month.
Oh, brother.
It's
Yeah.
never been done. Presidents like Biden have said, "Oh yeah, yeah, I recognize it. Yeah," but it's never gone through the process of becoming a nationally, like a national holiday, like the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday happened, and so on. That was done right. That was done legally. No, they just said June is Pride Month. Period. The media jumped on board.
Yes.
The woke politicians and idiots, and even some churches jumped on board,
Oh,
going, "Yep,
boy.
yeah, well, it's official." No, it's not official. It was never official, was it?
Correct. I think that's a great point you're making. The right wants to play the game that the left plays, and we need to change the rules of the game or say that this is a game I refuse to play. I go back to what Secretary Duffy in the Transportation Department and with Secretary Hegseth. What a great guy. You know, he's very open about his faith. And they said, we're not going to celebrate this at all. Why are we designating, you know, and I've talked to Black people. They don't need a Black History Month. They're not weak people. They don't need a promotion or a pickup from the state so that they can be comfortable in their own skin. It's actually quite condescending. And more people, there's more institutions in Huntington Beach, California. They got rid of all the identity celebration months. A lot of people where I live in the city of Torrance, California, they protested a lot of these celebration months. The mayor, George Chen, he's an immigrant from Taiwan, but of course he's a naturalized citizen. He took a stand, says, we're not going to do Pride Month. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to sign off. It's a behavior. It's not an identity. That took some courage, especially in Blue LA County where I live. And he also said, we have all of these identity months that take time away from actual government business. In a lot of cases, politicians want a virtue signal without actually engaging in virtue. That's part of why they want to do these celebration months. I could not agree. I think that is a great point you've made. It's time for us to, well, we're going to do this because you did that. Like, I've heard some conservatives let's have a conservative drag queen. There's no such thing. This is crazy. How about no drag queens? Thank you. How about none? Drag queens are not for kids. And frankly, let's be mature adults here. They're not really for adults. If you have to go watch a guy in a dress make a complete fool of himself and degrade women and engage in salacious acts on a stage to have fun, you have a problem. You have a problem. And we should not be afraid to say that. We shouldn't be normalizing this at all. That's a great point. That's the attitude to have. Let's go bigger. Let's think broader. Let's restore. Not just conserve, but restore.
I shudder to think what kind of inroads would have been made by the left if they would have had 4 more years.
Oh, brother.
If Kamala would have been elected as president, or even if Biden had not jumped out and he got a second term, because he
They
hasn't been
were
calling it.
and they
He's not
were
calling it
absolute
impeachment.
LGBT bigots. They were absolute LGBT zealots. That was their biggest group. They went out of their way to celebrate this tiny group of obsessed, aggressive activists. And that's why politicians, especially on the left, they love pandering to the whole LGBT cult because they are the most dedicated and militant activists. And this
Militant
is
is
a
the word,
problem.
and
Militant is the word.
financially,
Financially, good. Yes.
they give a lot
They have the
to
money to spend because they don't raise families. They're too busy promoting themselves. They don't. You're not seeing a great contribution to the culture.
promoting
That is a huge point.
themselves. Don't miss what Arthur just said.
Yes,
Once one gets in a position of any kind of power where they're getting to hire, they're gonna hire people who are like minded.
yes,
It's
and
just
it
what
all
they do.
goes back to this falsehood that people are born that way. And
Yeah.
this is a discussion that I was grateful for the opportunity. I was able to testify before the Idaho State Affairs Committee on this resolution. And I said very plainly, people are not born homosexual. There are people who have left the lifestyle, they get married, and they have children. Why is it? This is one of the fundamental reasons why I was so outspoken about this agenda. It's like this emperor clearly has no clothes. Well, literally, they don't. They march naked in pride parades, for crying out loud. Absolute child abuse. But this agenda has no clothes. This is a total lie, and yet everybody's just co-opted into this. It's time to stand for truth and assert, no, you're not born that way. It's not like being black or Hispanic or having an ethnic background, which you are born with, and we've got to stop accommodating it. And you don't destroy entire institutions to pander to or promote a lie.
How about law enforcement?
Oh,
I
brother.
know
Yes.
people who have actually reported these pride parades, saying they're flinging their junk around in the face of a 9-year-old
Yep.
child. This is happening right now in our streets. Do something to stop it. They don't. They won't.
That's it. It's a problem. Even the previous sheriff in LA County, I mean, he stopped being woke after a certain point. He started to abandon it. So I give him credit. But he even had like an LGBT badge, like to celebrate this Pride Month. Like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be law enforcement. How dare you? You can't politicize the enforcement of our laws. They have to be they have to be equal, fairly applied, and everybody has to know that there is a due process of law. And if you're tipping your hand for this month or that month, and especially for degradation, we got a problem here. And why does this happen? Because the argument has been advanced now, especially for the last 10 years post Obergefell. Well, I was born this way. I'm just celebrating who I am. And if you say otherwise, you're a bigot, you're a Nazi, you're a hater, and you have to
Homophobe.
oh, yeah, there you go. Homophobic. I was blessed. I was invited to participate in a discussion panel on Jubilee Media. They have a lot of discussions with people of different minds, trying to find consensus, whatever. And so I was there discussing, should children be allowed to medically transition? I mean, this is just a no-brainer. No. And I'm happy to report even the most liberal commentators agreed with me. But at one point, they were talking about Dylan Mulvaney, who is promoting Bud Light. And I said, he. They got very offended. They kept trying to correct me. Well, her pronouns are no, it's a male. One person fires back saying, well, that's transphobic. And I fired back, you know what? Telling the truth is not a mental illness. It is not a mental illness to tell the truth, to tell it like it is. And that is my challenge and invitation to every one of you. When someone says homophobic, you say, no, I'm telling the truth. And that's not a mental illness. You're denying the truth and imposing that lie on me. That is a mental illness. That we have to have that response, and we need to have that ready at all times, because it's just a cudgel to try to silence people.
I
Do
see it
not
even in
talk about
conservative.
it.
I see it in conservative media too. I
Yep.
see it on Fox News, for example,
Yes.
calling it a her and a she, and I know it's
No.
not. And
Mhm.
that's a lie. That's an absolute lie. You
Correct.
media is supposed to be conservative. Media is supposed to be telling the truth, but yet you just bought right into the lie
We
because
have to
they're
keep pushing
afraid,
them.
aren't they? They're afraid of having advertisement pulled. They're afraid of what you and I'm quite confident you have, because I know I have. When I talk about these things, I've received death threats.
Oh, yeah.
That's the most violent group of people I've ever spoken out against, is the homosexual community.
Mhm.
Violent. And most people in media are afraid of that, and they're afraid of being boycotted and so on and so forth. So they continue pushing that lie by calling someone like Dylan Mulvaney a he
or
or a
Bruce
she
Jenner.
and a
Bruce
her or
Jenner.
Bruce Jenner.
I'm so sick of, and
Yeah.
especially in California, like you've got you have a cadre or a caste or a group of Republicans that celebrates that guy, and I'm
Yeah.
just stunned
Because
that
because he says he's conservative. Yeah.
he
So they're
says I'm
embracing it.
conservative, and I just I am unrelenting. I'm unsparing in my disgust with this, and we should not hold back. We need
No.
to be just really clear about this. You know, there's no such thing as a drag queen conservative. I'm not having that. There's no such thing as a gay conservative. Jesse Lee Peterson had the guts to say this about 7 years ago. He thought about having a forum on it, and I said, "Sign me up. I'd love to join you." He invited me up for another forum 7 years ago on immigration, but this is the issue I want to. To this day, I have reached out to Republican clubs, and they won't do a forum. They won't have this discussion to discuss should we allow LGBT in. They won't have this discussion. They're so afraid. They don't want it to turn into an S show. I'm trying to keep my language clean for the audience. They won't do it, and I think no, it's time to do it. And I think, you know, I was privileged to be on your show, and I think it was October when we were at Newport Beach, and I appreciate that. And I had my concerns. I mean, Trump didn't get elected yet, and even when he did get elected, I was disappointed with the results of the first term. Boy, he has redeemed himself, or Christ has redeemed him, whatever term, you know, definitely God saved him. I agree with you. His life was saved by God, divine providence to do what he needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if he talked left, but governs right, I have no problem with it. If that's what it took to sound moderate, but then to govern right on, no complaints. I will accept that. And this may be the absolute vehicle we needed to change everything. And I'm thrilled. I'm fine with it. I don't mind being wrong. I don't mind if he had to play one game to get the results the other way. I'm fine with it.
I love this forum thing, this live forum thing, question and answer.
You want to host it? I would love to do it. You call Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson.
One thing I can pretty much guarantee right now, no big mega church is going to let me set something like that up.
Yeah.
Not
it
going to
won't
happen.
be a church event. Mass Resistance, we've had 2 Stand for Truth conferences, minimum. I know there's been more, I'm forgetting, but I know the 2 that stand out. One was in 2015. We did it in Salt Lake City, Utah. And then there was one in Texas. I know that there have been other forums on this. I want to start having this discussion. And I want it to not just, and I actually don't want it to be in a church. I want it to have a broader format and a broader audience, that we're talking about constitutional norms and natural rights. I'm not saying God doesn't.
So do I. But as far as I'm concerned, something speaking out against sexual sin belongs in the church. That's who should be championing it, and actually at the forefront against it and speaking out against it. But they're not. They don't.
And I can tell you, there was a health freedom group. It was in Pasadena, California, which is a liberal area, and these health freedom advocates were a very interesting group. You had Democrats, you had liberal independents, but when it came to vaccine mandates, when it came to passports, when it came to this violation of bodily autonomy, they were ruggedly opposed, and they began leaving the Democratic Party over this. And one of the liberal leaders, I think he was liberal, maybe more libertarian, his name was Anthony Rose. He invited me to talk about these issues. And he gave a disclaimer. It says he's going to share some stuff you don't agree with, but he allowed me to talk. And I wasn't afraid. I want people to disagree with me. I want people to argue with me, but let's do this. Don't silence this. And we do have to talk about this, though, because we're seeing all these consequences, and you got to get to the core of it. And a lot of the pro-family groups are just tinkering around the edges. They're not going to the core. They're not going after Obergefell. We are. And this is important. And I hope that this inspires more states to take this up. And God bless Liberty Counsel. They have a case right now representing Kim Davis, the Kentucky county clerk, who was arrested for not issuing same-sex marriage licenses. Her rights were violated. She's suing for redress. That case looks like it's going to the Supreme Court, and that might be the moment where they overturn Obergefell.
Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade is a fine example of a hell-bent on the left court deciding things for us, enacting laws when that's not their job. They can't enact laws, but yet they did in a way, because the media and all the left all jumped on it and started saying, oh, the Supreme Court said abortion is legal. No, that's not what they said. And then it was just a groundswell of horrible genocide and infanticide from there. It
Yeah.
was a horrible thing. And Justice Clarence Thomas said we need to revisit this, and thank
Yes.
God they did. I didn't think that was going to happen,
Me
but
neither.
yet
I
it
mean,
did.
it was a miracle. I was crying.
It
I was
was.
in tears to
I
see
know.
over 50 years. Let's call it what it 50 years that this had been the law, as you pointed out. That's not really law of the land. And
Uh-uh.
I am grateful. I think that there is momentum to see. Wait a minute, two men can marry? No, I don't think so. And this is only 10 years.
Yeah.
It was
When
a
did
much
that
more.
happen?
And
When
if
did
I
that
may,
happen? And notice how quiet it was. During what administration was this? Tell us when that all got snuck through
yeah,
by the Supreme Court that, states can't tell homosexuals that they can't be married.
it was right there under the waning years, the declining years of the Obama administration. There it is. And we also, this is something that most people don't know. Two of those justices at the time, you had Ginsburg and Kagan had been recently confirmed. They had officiated same-sex weddings before. So right away, they were ineligible. They should have recused
Right.
themselves. They were not
Recuse themselves.
impartial triers of fact or law. And if they had done that, there would have been 4 against the perversion and 3 for it. It would have failed. So that is a seminal problem. One of the legislators in Idaho talked about this during the debate on the floor. So the resolution, it's passed the Idaho House. It's going to the Idaho Senate. We're hoping for the best there. The Idaho Senate tends to be a little more liberal, but Idaho voters have been sending a very loud message the last 2 election cycles. We're sick of rhinos. We're sick of liberals masquerading as Republicans. We want conservative legislature to reflect the conservative, the growing conservative population in the state.
With some fortitude, please.
Yeah,
Some intestinal fortitude, if nothing
absolutely.
else.
Absolutely.
The state of California, I don't know about wherever you're watching if you're not in California, but the state of California had made it to where anyone who called themselves in a domestic partnership, homosexual marriage, for lack of calling it, but without being able to legally call it marriage. And by the way, Gavin Newsom, when he was mayor of San Francisco, really went completely against our laws and enacted that.
He was lawless.
Not an accident. But anyway, in California, one of the arguments was always, well, they don't have the same rights. They can't, if their partner's in the hospital, they're not allowed to go in because they're not legally a spouse and so on and so forth. Well, no. That's not true in California. They had enacted and passed all kinds of laws that made it to where you have all the same rights as a married couple, but you're in a domestic partnership.
And see, now I want to build on that. Thank you for bringing that up. You made a great point earlier. We don't want a straight pride month because that's buying into the lie. And we have to go a step further on this. I can't remember. I was reading it today. It was the United Kingdom, Gary Power. I think that's his name. And he's like, wow, I fought for same-sex marriage. This is a bad thing. It's turning out bad. But he also said, I'm okay with civil unions. And my answer has to be no. Because the whole point of the civil union argument was precisely to slip in the same-sex marriage argument. More importantly, it's about affirming and validating behaviors that are destructive. You got to get to that. And but going back, your point you're trying to make is they wanted to play victim and they weren't victims. The state of California had created all these privileges for homosexuals and transgenders. Let's be honest, they've been around for a long time in San Francisco too. Men dressing up as women, pretending to be women. This has been going on a lot longer, sadly, than people want to admit. It was recognized as a mental illness then. It needs to be recognized as a mental illness now. We have seen the medical communities also ideologically captured, co-opted by this agenda, and we've got to push back on it. The sex mutilation of minors, I believe that was like the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of even liberals who are like, live and let live. You're going after the kids, you're mutilating kids. It is so abhorrent. It is so barbaric.
Yeah.
Going back to, I was on that Jubilee program a year and a half ago, and even liberals were just stunned. It's like, no, this is a bridge too far for me. Lawyers in the ACLU have resigned when they started saying that your daughter should share a bathroom with a male. Pretending it's like the women are like, no, that maternal instinct did kick in. No, I can't.
And if that was on the other side of the aisle, the media would have been all over reporting that these people are quitting. But I never heard anything about it.
Yeah, the corporate America profits off of the butchering of boys and girls and the destruction of marriage. It's a horrible thing. You were speaking out against big business and the harms that they do. This is a problem, and this is another growing pain for the conservative movement. It's always been free market, but there's been a confusion. Free markets does not mean big business. I'm not necessarily pro-business. I'm pro-free market. That is a necessary distinction. I think Trump is really...
And to let the little mom and pop stores compete against the big corporations.
Yeah, they can't compete when the big business and the big government make big deals that screw the little guy. And this is germane because big business loves big homo and big tranny. They're
big homo and big tranny.
Yeah.
Aye. California is.
You better capture this as soon as it's done, because Facebook's going to be... I don't know. Facebook, I posted transgenderism is a mental illness. It didn't get taken down. Zuckerberg's keeping his word. He's reversing some. Now, I don't know how far it goes. I don't know about
I don't believe he is keeping his word, because I've already had several things taken down when I did that show.
There you go. Case closed. There you go. So yeah, make sure you capture it before he takes it down.
I will.
So let's do that.
How do we find you? How do we follow you and what you're doing?
So massresistance.org. I always put my general information out, 781-474-3005. I'm sure you can post it somewhere. My email address, arthur@massresistance.org. I'm not afraid of the LGBT cult. They have my contact information. I rarely get nasty messages because they know it doesn't work on me. When you send a message of "you can't shake me," then they figure that they give up. You break their will. I love your suggestion. I really want to have that forum. Jesse Lee Peterson, if he wants to share a stage with me, or I'll happy to steer.
You're talking about Jordan Peterson?
Yeah, Jesse Lee Peterson. He's a black pastor activist. He's in the LA area.
Oh wow!
I don't know if you haven't heard of him. I gotta connect you with him.
No, I have not. I'd love to talk to him.
So there's him. There's, I don't know, and if there's any conservative who thinks that a libertarian mindset and wants to have a different way, I want to have that discussion. I want to get past the place of just talking to people who agree with me and don't want to say anything, or who just agree with me. We really need to start opening minds and having this. And there's been some conservative groups. They've been, well, this person was persecuted just because he was gay. And that is the open door for saying, why do you think they're going that way? I don't argue, but I ask, why do you think that? And they go, oh, well, I didn't realize it. I didn't realize this. I didn't realize that. We have to do this. And this has been neglected because we do not talk about these issues, and we have to.
Is such a ridiculous victim mentality, where my first question with that kind of statement is, really, can you give me an example? What was this? How are they discriminated against? Well, yes. During lunch, I talked about my husband, and my manager gave me a dirty look. What was a dirty look? What do you mean a dirty look? Well, it was like an eye roll. Like an eye roll, was it? Did you actually see it? Well, no, somebody else saw it, and they told me that he did that. That's the kind of crap. That's what happened to me when I took a stand against the San Francisco City Council, when they made it illegal for you as a store owner, a business owner, to send a dude back home and say, you can't come dressed like a woman. If you're going to work here, you got to dress like a man. You can't be doing that. And they passed a law, an ordinance, city ordinance in San Francisco, that was illegal to tell an employee to do that. And the backlash,
non-discrimination, right?
The backlash and the attacks that I got almost cost me my job with ABC. That was the ABC radio and television in San Francisco.
So you served in that affiliate there in the Bay Area. Wow.
And that's the difference. You're able to speak freely and clearly, and I thank the Lord for that, because you're a standalone. This is you. This is your ministry. This is your passion. The Lord, you feel, has given you this voice to wake up his people against the sins and atrocities of adults who are following the devil's rules, and they're doing his work just as quickly as possible, for his time is short. There's no other explanation for it, in my mind, at least. Am I being too black and white?
That is black and white, clear as crystal, and we need that clarity and crystal truth out there for everyone to see.
I'm not telling you can't decide as a dude that you want to be with another dude. I can't tell you. I can, like, my own fellow Christians going, well, who are you to judge? Well, Jesus went and ate with sinners. He ate with them, but not to tell them, hey, everything you're doing is okay. Keep
They
on
always
doing it.
use that
I
phrase.
love
They
you
didn't say
anyway.
sinners. They always miss that part. They
I
didn't
know.
stay that way. You know,
No.
they seem to think love doesn't mean acceptance, accommodation, or approval. In fact, taking biblical revelation, it's the love of Christ that transforms us. That's 2 Corinthians 3:16 through 18. We are transformed from glory to glory. We don't stay the same. Peter didn't stay the same. James didn't stay the same. John didn't stay. People change. People change.
Right.
That's the power of saving grace. People seem to miss that.
But
It's
there's a
a
lot in the
shame.
conservative side of things now I've noticed that are not believers. They're just not Christians. In
That's
fact,
becoming a problem. Yeah,
some
the
of them are hostile
atheistic
to it.
movement, which just really takes out the core. There has to be a moral order, and it's like libertarianism with an American flag on it is not a winning strategy. Atheism with a national sentiment is not a winning strategy, because what's the basis for the moral standards? What's the basis for right and wrong? You have to have some format. You have to have some structure for that. Yes,
Amen.
that's an issue. We got to pay attention to that too.
Arthur Shopper, massresistance.org. And keep fighting the good fight, brother. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, it was a pleasure. First time I had Arthur on, we were actually live at an event, and somebody said, you got to be on this guy's show. He didn't know me. He hadn't seen the show. He didn't know what I was all about. And it's so funny when you go back and watch that show, which a lot of people have. He's very guarded. In fact, a couple of times I'm trying to make a point that agrees with him, and he would go, whoa, let me finish. Let me make the statement. And I'm like, whoa, buddy. You'll learn I'm on your side. So this was great. I really enjoyed talking with you, Arthur, and I'm glad now that you know I am on your side. Now we're all on the side of Christ Jesus. And if you call speaking out against sin hate, I think you need to start reading God's word and examine the scriptures for yourself. That's the best advice I can ever give you. Read a chapter a day. It keeps false teachers away. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America bless God.